Future Sense is a podcast edited from the radio show of the same name, broadcast on Bay FM in Byron Bay, Australia at bayfm.org. Hosted by Nick Jeans and well-known international futurist Steve McDonald, Future Sense provides a fresh, deep analysis of global trends and emergent technologies. How can we identify the layers of growth, personally, socially, and globally? What are the signs missed, the truths being denied? Science, history, politics, psychology, ancient civilizations, alien contact, the new psychedelic revolution, cryptocurrency and other disruptive and distributed technologies, and much more. This is Future Sense. And welcome to my co-host here on Future Sense, Steve McDonald. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Nick.
How are you today?
I am a little...
steamy.
Steamy.
It's steamy in here.
It's particularly tropical here in Byron Bay at the moment, but on top of that, the air conditioning has broken down in the studio.
Yeah.
And we have one of our biggest fans here in the studio today, and she has a large palm leaf, which she's waving.
And she's been quite silent at the moment, which is good. We don't want to put too much to the microphones there.
I think you turned her off.
I did. No, hopefully not. But we do have air conditioning issues here, but you probably heard lots of Bay FM presenters complaining about that. That's okay. We've had to get it in place, and we will be replacing the full air conditioning system next Tuesday, the 25th. So bear with us, please. It's the whole system failed here. So
that's right. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be a whole lot cooler.
Not that we're not cool already. Yeah. So you're now tuned to Future Sense, and what's on the show today, Steve?
We're going to give another update on the coronavirus because there's a lot happening there, and it's a very significant issue globally for many, many reasons. And then after that, we're going to talk about Earth's energy grids.
Yeah.
And relay some information which was passed on through Cryon recently.
Yes, and for many people, of course, that sort of science is a little edgy, and yes, it is, but it's also true that some of the purely scientific factors of the Earth's resonance, magnetic fields and so forth, and things like the Schumann resonance do have clearly scientific, biological and other effects on human beings. And just on that basis, we should pay attention to the movement of these subtle energies, and perhaps we are becoming more and more awakened to exactly those things.
It's actually advanced science.
It's advanced science. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're tuned to Future Sense with Nick Jeans and Steve McDonald. Engage, emerge, activate, and spiral up. 9:15 here on Bay FM 999, your local and vocal radio station. You're tuned to Future Sense here with myself, Nick Jeans, and Steve McDonald through till 11 o'clock this morning. And welcome out there for those listening on the podcast, which we put out a couple of days after this broadcast live to air in Byron Bay. And we edit the music and sponsorship announcements out for the usually a 2, sometimes a 3-part piece on each week's podcast and each week's broadcast. Thanks.
I was going to say thanks to Dina for doing the podcasting for us, and often we get the podcast out same day of late, so you don't
actually,
have to wait too long. That's
very true.
Yeah.
Thanks for your texts already. Texts on 043734 1119 at any time. 043734 1119. And yes, thanks for the fan jokes of wearing thin. Yeah, true. It's just that it's, and you know, Nikki, you know what it's like in here, but you haven't been in here when it's this hot, so it's a little distracting, to be honest. But yes, we'll try and cut out the tropical jokes here this morning. It's tropical enough outside as it is. And in the world, of course, there's some big things going on as usual. And I noticed that the Chinese, some commentary has said that the coronavirus is a black swan to the Chinese. And I thought that was interesting, the black swan being an unpredictable or unforeseen event, typically one with extreme consequences. Is that the case? Where are we up to with the coronavirus?
Well, it's certainly having a huge impact and broader than we might have expected. I think we've got a lot to learn from this, and that's why we're continuing to provide coverage every week on where it's at, because the implications are growing. And we've got a lot to learn because it won't be the last pandemic that we see. There'll be many more in the future, I'm sure. But it is highlighting the interconnectedness of our world in many different ways. And although great attempts are being made to limit the spread and limit the impact, I think we're all going to feel the impact of this coronavirus outbreak in some way. And it might not be a health impact, it might be an economic impact that we feel. That term black swan is very popular in the futurist world to indicate unexpected events.
Yes.
At the moment, the Chinese government is facing a great dilemma, because by quarantining people and shutting down activity, that they are in fact crashing their own economy. And they have that difficult choice of whether to maintain the quarantine and watch the economy slump, or get economic activity up and running again and risk the virus spreading and having a great impact. So a very, very tricky situation that they're in there. And I just wanted to point out also that it's very much in line with the prediction from Martin Armstrong's economic confidence model, which noted a turning point of the 18th of January and predicted subsequent scarcity of commodities and inflation of prices. And this particular outbreak is having exactly that impact. Yeah. And part of the reason that Martin's model is so accurate is it is in line with natural cycles, including solar cycles. And he didn't design it that way. He actually found out later on, after he produced the model, that it just happened to be in sync with those things. And it makes sense when you think about it, that the weather and solar activity would impact human activity, particularly the rate of human activity, and whether we're indoors or outdoors and those sorts of things. So this is not unexpected in terms of the economic impact, but it's having a huge impact on supply chains right now. Apart from tourism, and the travelling of people backwards and forwards to and from China, shipping and things like that is being massively disrupted. Yes. And because of the lead times, the time it takes to load a ship and the ship to sail to another country and unload, it's kind of a delayed impact, and we haven't seen the real impact of these supply chain issues yet. Yeah. But there'll come a time in the not too distant future where things aren't available that we normally expect to be there when we want them.
And as you said, in China, of course, they're battling with how much to shut things down or how much to keep the economy running. The state newspaper, the Beijing Daily, said people failing to obey self-quarantine would be punished, but it was not immediately clear how that would be enforced or whether the restrictions would apply to non-residents of the Chinese capitals or foreigners arriving from abroad. So it's all pretty loose, isn't it? And especially because you can get the virus and show no effect and transmit it all in the space of 14 days or so without knowing that you're going to get sick.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll run through an update on the health aspects in a moment. I'm just looking at an article here about disruption to shipping, and it's saying that the world's top container lines have all reduced calls to China, and the export of goods has already been hit. Hyundai Motors has said it will suspend production in South Korea because of a lack of spare parts, and that's just the thin end of the wedge, so there'll be a lot more to come in that area. And because there's so many things that we design in the West these days are actually either fully manufactured or partially manufactured in China, so pretty much a lot of the things that we see in the shops in our local area may be impacted at some point.
Well, this article is talking particularly about Japan, which relies on securing parts and as you're saying, from China in order to normalise production lines as Chinese factories delay reopening after the lunar holidays. So it just keeps on going and having a rolling on effect with so many different countries. And in China itself, I didn't know that Starbucks had 4,300 stores in China, but all of them are closed.
Wow.
4,300. Disney has closed both the Shanghai Disney Park and the Hong Kong Park. And China is the second largest motion picture market in the world, and all the theatres have been closed because they don't want people in large public gatherings, obviously. So there's therefore a large impact on Hollywood studios themselves, who rely on that for a significant part of their income. So the roll-on effect is extraordinary, where it's going to move into in the areas of our existence.
It is, and a whole bunch of things that you just wouldn't expect at first glance. Things are so connected these days. Yeah. It's a wonderful demonstration of how connected we are, and a problem like this anywhere in the world is really a global issue, and it affects us all. And I guess it just highlights the fact that we need to work together to resolve these issues.
And on a pure level of virus itself and viral infection, there's been some reporting of just the sheer number of people on the planet and the amount that we move around. So many of us gives viruses a really incredible opportunity to spread themselves, and it's a kind of a natural process on that level, if it is a natural virus, which we're still kind of tackling whether it's a natural virus or in some sense it's a produced virus, and even possibly a bioweapon. That's sort of going out a little bit far, but there is evidence there.
Yeah, someone I was listening to over the weekend made a good point, and that is whether it's come from a virus lab or whether it was released through contact at a wet market in China. Either way, humans are responsible for the spread of it. Basically, it comes down to human activity. So there's no getting away from our responsibility there. And some of the more concerning issues that have popped up in the last week are evidence of transmission during the early symptom-free period, and also a risk of reinfection. And there's some, while it's really early days and a lot of the reporting can't necessarily be relied on right at the moment, but there's some suggestion that it may even be worse if you are reinfected and have it a second time. It may impact you more greatly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, that article talks about that it is highly possible to get infected a second time. A few people who recovered from the first time by their own immune system, but used certain meds which apparently can damage heart tissue, and when they get the virus for the second time, the antibody doesn't help but makes it worse, and they can die a sudden death from heart failure. Now, don't want to scare anybody out there, but this is forwarded from the Taiwan News from a relative of one of the doctors living in the United Kingdom who's looking at this virus. So, while you don't want to believe everything that you read, it's certainly worth looking at these indications of what this might be about and how it's going to pan out.
Yeah, it also kind of explains what I thought was an overreaction at first. When you look at the casualty figures from the virus and the sort of widespread action that China took very, very quickly once it made a decision to act. I thought it was a bit unusual. It didn't really add up, but if they had some pre-knowledge of the fact that this could spread before the symptoms emerge and the fact that there was a reinfection danger, then that would explain, why they've been so severely cracking down on it. I've got an article here from Australian ABC News just from yesterday, which gives an update about the health aspects, and I'll just quickly skip through that for the benefit of all you listening out there. As of Sunday, the death toll worldwide stood at 1,666. That's an interesting number. And all but 4 of those deaths were in China, so very, very much restricted to China in terms of deaths at the moment, mostly. Hubei province, at the epicentre of the outbreak, has reported 1,596 of those deaths, and the first death outside China was in the Philippines earlier this month. What else have we got here? So it's the reported death rate still sits at around about 2%, so they're saying 2.3% in this article, which is less than some of the previous pandemics that we've had, like SARS. The infection rate continues to climb, however. And part of that, I think, has been because of the fact that it can spread before the symptoms emerge. And this apparently has been a finding of what people are calling the Diamond Princess experiment, which is the ship that's been quarantined. And no doubt they were quarantining people who displayed symptoms on the ship, but the virus continued to spread amongst the rest of the population, and that was sort of indicating that this transmission does happen before the symptoms show up.
So this is actually the formal Centre for Disease, CDC, what's that?
Centre for Disease Control,
Yeah, guidance on these is that transmission risk is highest with peak symptoms equating to peak virion shedding, is what it calls here, as was the case with SARS, but not so with this virus, reinforcing the public health necessity of a strict 14-day quarantine. Yeah, very difficult. Yeah,
they're saying that the incubation time from exposure is about 7 to 10 days, and so the 14-day quarantine that people are using at the moment is effective, which is good to know. 25 countries have been affected worldwide so far, according to the World Health Organization. Singapore is the second highest affected with 72 cases. And it's thought that the virus spreads mainly through what they call respiratory droplets from an infected person, so sneezes, coughs, those sorts of things. However, interestingly, in this ABC advisory article, they are saying that there's no real need for the general public to wear masks. So that is interesting.
I saw a report the other day of a flight from Melbourne to the Gold Coast where almost everybody on the flight had masks, wearing masks.
Someone sent me a photo on the weekend of a cat wearing a mask, which I thought was quite remarkable. It was a cat on a lead too, which is also remarkable.
Okay.
I don't know why or how a cat would just tolerate wearing a mask, but there it was right there with a mask on.
We have a couple of texts in, one very relevant here, talking about the economic impact. Coronavirus already is impacting my business as now materials are stuck on a ship in China, and it's the shoe doctor. G'day, thanks for listening out there. So there you go. Another text here. Love Future Sense. Thank you for broadening my outlooks here. Pleasure. The good. Yeah. 0437341119. You can text in at any time. And
I'm still just skipping through this advisory article from the ABC News. They're saying that in the most severe cases, the virus causes pneumonia, which is why it can be deadly. Other serious complications can include respiratory distress or failure, septic shock, acute kidney injury, virus-induced cardiac injury, and secondary bacterial pneumonia. And they're saying, in terms of precautions, if you feel you are in an area where you are at risk, keep your hands as clean as possible by washing them with soap and water or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your eyes, nose or mouth. Clean and disinfect frequently touch surfaces at home, work or school, especially when someone is sick. And they're saying quite clearly there's no need for the general public to wear face masks. I guess that depends where you are.
Yeah.
This is particularly an advisory for Australia. If you have a trip to anywhere in China, they're urging you not to travel at this point.
Yeah. Whew, lots of stuff there. We'll come back shortly and continue, see what else we can dig up regarding the coronavirus, and move on to some other stuff during the show. You're tuned to Future Sense here. It's 9:29. You're resonating right now on Future Sense with Steve McDonald and Nick Jeans. You're tuned to Future Sense here with Steve McDonald and Nick Jeans through till 11 o'clock this morning, and tuned in also possibly on podcast via our website futuresense.it or your podcast platform. And thanks for joining us wherever you are out there in the world.
Just giving an update on the coronavirus, and at the moment around 500 million people in China are affected by policies put in place restricting movement to contain the virus. That's more than the entire population of the United States, and it's equivalent to roughly 6.5% of the world's population. As of Friday, at least 48 cities and 4 provinces in China have issued official notices for lockdown policies, with measures ranging from closed-off management, where residents of a community have to be registered before they're allowed in or out, to restrictions that shut down highways, railways and public transport systems. So it's pretty extreme. At the moment, there is no vaccine for the virus.
And they say maybe it could take as much as a year to produce one, in fact.
Yeah. There is a pharmaceutical drug called remdesivir, which was developed to treat the Ebola virus. And in human clinical trials in Africa, it proved safe for humans, but it didn't actually treat the Ebola virus effectively at all. However, China has announced a full-scale random double-blind placebo-controlled trial in 761 patients, which started about 3 days ago, and they're hoping that they might get some action out of that. So we'll wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, big stuff. And as you said earlier, just one of the things that it does show us very clearly is how connected we all are. If you didn't know that already, if you didn't feel that already, or didn't acknowledge that already, it's pretty clear when something like this happens that if you're living on this planet, then you are at the effect of anything like this that can occur, either as this kind of viral outbreak, or of course natural disasters or events, weather events, climate events that are occurring on the planet, and bringing attention again to that cyclone off the coast of Britain, 30-metre waves. That's extraordinary. So we're all in the same boat, really.
We are really, and it's a great lesson in that respect. And we can use it to reflect on things like trade wars, for example, which we think are somehow beneficial, and they don't hurt us, but they hurt the others. But in fact, they hurt everybody. And it's just a matter of how far you follow the impact trail before you find how it's impacting you. So we need to learn that lesson and learn to work together and cooperate much better.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you're tuned to Future Sense here with Steve McDonald and Nick Jeans here on Bay FM. And I think that's probably... Got anything else on the coronavirus?
I think that'll do for the moment. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good update on where things are at, and we'll continue to monitor the international situation and keep you up to date every week.
And we didn't touch on the possibility that there could be a bioweapon of some sort, or something that's escaped. I mean, there's evidence to suggest there's this possibility, or that's just an extensive sort of conspiracy theory that's out there.
Yeah, have been studying everything on the internet pretty carefully, and of course you get everything on the internet, all sorts of crazy ideas as well as solid facts, and I don't see any clear evidence pointing to where it's come from. Some sites are happy resting in the conclusion that it came from a wet market, and that's highly possible that it was a transmission from an animal in the wet market in Wuhan.
Yeah.
However, there's also, there's no clear and unchallengeable evidence to prove that, and also there's no clear evidence that whether it was in fact sourced as accidentally or on purpose out of a bioweapons lab. So we still really are uncertain about both of those things. With my ex-military hat on, from a military bioweapons perspective, it is an interesting development to find out that at first it looks relatively harmless, just like another flu, but after a while, the impacts are growing unexpectedly, and there's transmission without symptoms, and the risk of reinfection, which some people are saying might even be more serious the second time around.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more insidious than SARS and the other coronaviruses which have emerged so far, and that itself, I guess, is troubling, just that it is more complex and insidious. It is
troubling, and if one was wanting to design a bioweapon, then you might actually build those factors in, because it would catch people by surprise.
Indeed. Thanks for your other text. I'm not sure if this is a joke or not, because you've signed it with a laughing, tear-filled eyes emoji, Trace, but you say, yes, I've already been affected. My shipment of comfy bras and silicone toe dividers has been delayed.
Ouch.
Yeah, terrible state of affairs.
The things we had to put up with.
Thanks for listening anyway. I don't know, we're taking the mickey out of something. It's good to keep your humour here. I mean, clearly we haven't been so affected in Australia yet, except for the number of Australians on that ship and other places out there in the world.
You sure you read that right?
Yeah, why?
Comfy bras and silicone, was it toe dividers or something?
Toe dividers, yes, silicone toe dividers.
Okay, right.
I don't know what a toe divider is for. Isn't that when you do your nails? I guess when you paint your nails, you think you need toe dividers of some sort. They do something like that. They separate the nails somehow. I don't know. Having never had my toenails painted. Oh, yeah, I have once, but that was a long time ago.
I suppose toes are sitting together all the time. It's probably good to give them a break.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can get confined as toes, especially if you're in shoes. This is silly stuff. Here we are on Bay FM on Future Sense. We'll be back. And we're going to look at a completely different direction after the break. Where are we going to go, Steve?
We're going to look at the Earth's magnetic grid systems, and we're going to be spanning some really solid science and some trans-rational information here. So we should give a small warning that the next part of the show is not going to be completely rational. It's going to be beyond rational in some respects. And but there's some wonderful information that we are going to pass on, much of which has come from a recent video from Lee Carroll and Monica Muriani. And those of you who are familiar with those names would know that Lee is an engineer from the United States who channels a disembodied entity called Cryon.
Oh my goodness.
And has a wonderful record over 30-some years of predicting scientific breakthroughs very, very accurately.
Yeah, and it's certainly worth looking at these kind of, these people, these channels, and we'll look at that. You've been listening to Future Sense, a podcast edited from the radio show of the same name, broadcast on Bay FM in Byron Bay, Australia, at bayfm.org. Future Sense is available on iTunes and SoundCloud. The future is here now. It's just not evenly distributed.